Alright, welcome to my video where I am going to show you how to glue up the pieces of this laser cut pencil box here. This one here is finished and glued up. This one here I have dry fit together, held together by some rubber bands here. I did this so that you could see how these pieces fit together by first taking it apart. But before I start, I want to make sure I have the correct supplies. I have some wood glue, make sure that it's working, that the nozzle is unclogged and open. Wet paper towel for doing any cleanup that we need. I have a piece of cardboard. I can make a little glue palette here. And then I have a little stick I just took out of the scrap bin for applying glue in some tight finger joints here. So I'm going to start by taking this apart so you can see how this all fits together. I'm going to be careful. There are some pretty fragile pieces here. Slow down a little bit here. All right. This little Minnesota piece, I can stain it a different color later on if I want, and it'll sit in there like an inlay. So that one I'm just going to set aside for now. This top part here, notice it goes on top of this sliding part. So this piece and this piece, those will get glued together. This section here is because you don't see it when this is put on. We use that extra space here to cut some of these end pieces. So that's where that hole comes from. And you can see inside of here that there are grooves on the top. Well, the bottom part is where the bottom fits in, but on each side here where this slides in and out. So the best way to think about putting this together is that the top and the sides are layered. What do I mean by that? Well, here, let me pull this piece out. You can see here that there are two pieces of wood sandwiched together. And I'll pull these off here so we can see without breaking it. It might be easier to do a different piece here. Very carefully so I don't break it. All right, so these are sandwiched together like this, and then you can think of this as being one piece. So when you put this together, you're going to glue these together and think of this as one piece, and then you're going to put all of those together. So I'm going to lay this out as I take it apart, how I want to put it back together. Very carefully so I don't break these. Here's the bottom. Here's the sides. All right. So if you look closely at the plywood, the faces of the plywood look a little different. One of the faces is smoother and has some lighter colored grain. I like the way that looks and feels. So when I lay this out, I'm going to make sure that this ends up on the outside of the pencil box. So that's what I see, like on this one. I see that part on this one. I think I did that on all the pieces. So you can't really see the other part of it. Oh, and here you can on the inside. So these pieces with the slots in it, those are going to go on the inside. And that doesn't matter as much for what you see because it's on the inside, but I like to lay it out so that I see that the finished, nice grain part of the plywood. And then you want to line this up so that the fingers line up on the ends. You can see here that's lined up now. So that's going to be my bottom. Same here. I find the piece that I like here. Make sure that that's lined up there. Have that backwards. That's the bottom. And then I have these here. I'm going to flip this one. I like that one better. So This one, same thing. Make sure that the wood grain that I want to see is on the outside. The inside has these slots on it. And I have it all laid out now. So I have my bottom, a side, another side, and these two sides like this. And then eventually I'm going to glue this to this and slide that in. But I'm going to start with this basic piece right here. So now that I'm ready, what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these two pieces together to make them one piece. And this, another word for this is laminating pieces together, and it doesn't take very much glue at all. I actually don't want too much because then it comes out on the ends and it looks bad. So get all the way up to the fingers here, spread it out with my fingers. I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to carefully go on top with that and making sure I line up my fingers. So notice on this one, I actually flipped this one around. I did put that one on backwards. So, or upside down I should say. I want to make sure that the fingers line up. So I'm just going to let that sit. It'll get a little bit tacky. I don't want to wait too long because then I won't be able to move it around. So I'm going to move pretty quickly here. Add a little bit of glue to this one. Smear it around. Get some in the fingers. Put that piece on top. Keep moving through here. A little bit of glue there. Spread it around. There we go. Last one here. Not too much glue. Just a thin layer. Wipe that off. All right, got my fingers lined up in the right places. All right, now I'm ready to kind of attach this together. So to make this pretty strong, I want to put some glue in these finger joints, and that's why I grabbed a piece of cardboard and this little stick here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spread a little bit of glue into the finger joints. You only need to do it on one side of the corner, not both sides, because they'll meet up with each other. So I'm going to do these long pieces. Get my glue in there in between. All right. So now I'm ready to put this all together. So I like this nicer looking side to be on the inside because that's most often when I see it. It will be when I'm opening it up. I'm going to slide that in. Notice that the top of this has a thicker finger that goes on the top of the box. So that piece that is going to fit into these fingers. I don't want to wait too long when I do this because the glue is going to start to get tacky and I won't be able to push these together. But while it's wet, I should be able to slide it around a little bit as I do this carefully. I could put glue in these slots as well, but it's a little overkill when you have glue in the fingers and in the other joints. All right, it's a bit of a struggle as the glue is beginning to get a little tacky, so I think I'm gonna get everything lined up and then use a couple of clamps to squeeze it closed once I know for sure that all of the joints are in the correct places. Because if I squeeze it together before that, then I'm going to break the wood. I'm going to grab a couple of clamps here. Let's see if I can get these fingers to come together. I'm going to take blue clamp and put it on the end here just to hold this in place. Not real tight yet, just enough so the pieces aren't moving around on me. I'll take this one, it's a little bit longer, put it on the end here. Alright, so if you look closely, that helped push some of these, but there's still a few fingers here that have a few gaps on there. So before the glue gets too dry, I'm going to go around and make sure that those fingers are pushed all the way in using this clamp. And then I'm going to look to see, you can see like right here, this one needs to come in. I popped it in with my hand there. And then you just want to inspect each corner to see if there's gaps in these finger joints. And look along the bottom here. Alright, now before we clamp this all up, we need to get the top slid in there. And so, just like we laminated those other pieces together, I'm going to laminate these two together, glue these together. Notice that I have my cutout over this area here. This part isn't cut out, so I'm not going to see that unless I turn the box over and look at it when it's open. So I want these to be glued like this. Now this one, we want to make sure we don't get glue on these little tabs right here, because then once you slide it in, those will get glued into that groove there, and then we'll never get the box open. So I'm going to put glue on this side because that's the side that has more surface area. Now I didn't stain my Minnesota a different color. Now that would have been a step to do before this, because now once I drop this in here to have it glued, I'm not going to be able to take it out and dye it a different color. So it'll just have to be this natural birch color. I don't want too much glue on this one because, like I said, I don't want it to squeeze out here, so I'm actually going to go and wipe some of this glue off in this area up here so this doesn't get glued on, so it still slides. So that goes right like that. I could actually waited and put that on last, but I'm just going to do it now. All right. So to get the slit in here, you're going to have to pry this open a little bit. It's going to be easiest to do it in the center part. You want to make sure that you don't break that thin piece there. It'll get stronger once the glue dries. But you can see it's in those grooves. And I should still be able to slide it. Now, while it's drying at first, you might every couple of minutes slide this to make sure that there isn't any glue that is gluing the top on permanently. So there it all is. I want to make sure everything's pretty tight and squared up. And then I want to make sure that everything is clamped pretty tight. So I could either use these blue quick grip clamps to hold these corners in, or if I wanted to, I could throw some rubber bands on it. That would also work. I'm going to try to clamp this sort of in the middle. Try to get one of these on each end here to pull those tight. They fit. And then that. Give it one last look over. This part maybe could use a little bit more glue on that. It's a little late to take it apart and put it in, but I can see there's a gap right here. So what I'm going to do is grab another clamp and clamp it right here in the middle. I'm actually going to see if I can add a little glue in there with the stick, very carefully without breaking it, just to make sure that's not going to come apart later on. It would have been better to do this before I put all these clamps on. But this should be enough to hold it now if I get it down in there. Rip off the extra. Grab another little clamp here. All right, I just need to wait. A day would be good, or an hour if you have it. And that's it.